Well, joining me in studio now is Mr. Matt Chipman. Matt is the president of Green Chip Investor Relations. Matt, always a pleasure having your program.
Thanks for having me on again.
Well, I always like to have you on the show following an election because, we just talk about how these elections, the results may affect companies. You and I follow a lot of small cap companies in our careers. But this was a historic thing that I think our grandchildren will be studying in school 50, 60 years from now.
Well, I think as much as they might study that is to study how polls are done. It's certainly, I think there were probably only 3 or 4 in the country that predicted the result and had some conviction behind it. So the way we do our pre-election, polling has got to change. But aside from that, look, I was admittedly on the fence on this one because I had problems with both candidates, as most people did.
Sure.
When it boils right down to it, we're all hopeful that Trump will slow down on the rhetoric that's considered, negative to a lot of people out there, and I think he will, and bring the country together again, and also surround himself by the right politicians and people that can enact his policies and what things that are going to grow this economy again.
Well, you got to look at Trump for what he is. I mean, he's a New Yorker. And, you and I are both West Coast guys. We live with our families on the West Coast. But when we travel to New York for financial conferences, it's an entirely different atmosphere. And if you bump into somebody, they come right back at you. And, when you grow up in New York and Manhattan, Brooklyn, like Trump did, that's his personality. You cross Trump, he's going to come back at you. He doesn't have that filter, so to speak. And that's part of his personality that, people just had to kind of get used to. Now, as I said, I said in the monologue, did he always say the right things? No. Did he try to stay above the fray of the negativity? No. Sometimes he poured gasoline on the fire. But it is what it is. But, going back to the polling, a lot of these media-driven polls, and I talk about like the ABC poll, the NBC polls, CBS, Wall Street Journal, whatever the case may be, all of them were dead wrong. But in many, many cases, these polls have a predetermined directive that they're trying to achieve, because I think that the media was definitely on the side of one candidate versus the other. And it appeared to me, it seemed, at least from my perspective, they were trying to show that the race was over, that it was a foregone conclusion, and they created a poll that would achieve just that result.
Yeah, I saw a cartoon drawing that I thought was interesting. This came out weeks before the election, and it had Trump sitting in a tiny little rowboat. And he's literally blowing on the sail, trying to go as fast as he can. And next to him is an ocean liner that Hillary's on board. And she looks down at him and goes, "How does he do that?" And he's going faster than she is. So anyway, he does have a groundswell of support that obviously didn't show up in the polls. I went to an event recently where Larry Kudlow was speaking, and some people asked him, because obviously he spent some time in some of the Reagan administration, and he knows a lot about politics, and they wanted to know, how do you feel? What is your real, true sense of can you support Donald Trump? And he said, look, when it boils right down to it, and he listed 5 or 6 of his key policies on how he would run and how he would invigorate and generate new business, especially small business. And that's what he likes. That's what he thinks will get the economy going again. And he says, that's the reason I vote for him. The other stuff, yes, he needs to control his mouth, but he'll support it.
I'll tell you the reason I voted for Donald Trump. Because I feel that Washington has become an elite country club. The Republicans and the Democrats publicly scream at each other, say they're against each other, but after the cameras are turned off, they're having drinks in the same cocktail lounges, having dinner in the same restaurants, they're playing golf at the same clubs, patting each other on the back. And it's just this country club of elitists that I felt that they had lost touch with the people they're supposedly representing. I looked at a Donald Trump character, and I look at him as a character. I looked at a Donald Trump presidency as coming in and shaking this up. Making these people realize, you know what, it's the people who run this country. You work for the people. It's not the other way around. Because I think, especially in the last 8 years, they have adopted the policy that it was the other way around, that we kind of work for them.
Well, I see it as, the pendulum definitely swings both ways, and we got a really good sense and a taste of the last 8 years, how things would go. And I'm saying, I actually thought Obama's presidency, was a lot better than I had envisioned, and I thought, and he stood for a lot of things that I felt, were resonated with me. And I think when we look back on his presidency overall, I don't think there'll be a lot of negative things to be said. Although, I think we could have bounced back in the economy a lot faster. I thought we could have grown in a lot of ways a lot faster than we did. I don't like the regulation. I don't like the that's come down on small business.
Right.
I'm a champion for small business. I'm a champion for small
Exactly.
companies to try to make it. And I think the biggest growth we've seen is with the large,
Right.
huge, big caps. And now I feel the small guy has a chance.
Well, small businesses are the backbone of the jobs economy, and the jobs economy is suffering because we have the lowest labor participation rate in 40 years. The Affordable Care Act is anything but affordable. I mean, I talked to someone last week in Phoenix who said that their new health care premium starting January 1st is more than the mortgage on their house. Can you imagine that?
I know it. I know it because I've experienced it. And there, look, there still needs to be some answers about what we're going to do to find health care for people that can't afford it. And the people that can't afford it, we've got to make it more, more accessible, more easier to pay for. Or we open up a lot more urgent care clinics and,
Right.
people just, I don't know, pay a cash rate. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, just like when an artist dies, he's more fondly remembered by the art community after he or she passes away. Ex-presidents are more fondly remembered after their terms end. So we'll have
That's
to kind
true.
of wait a couple of years and see how that all pans out. Now, the elections brought along something else that was rather historic, and that is the marijuana legislation in several states. California, the sixth largest economy in the world, recreational marijuana. Nevada, the tourist capital of the world, recreational marijuana. Massachusetts, on the other side of the country, recreational marijuana, and 4 or 5 others that pass it from a medical standpoint. We now have a tipping point where there are more states where marijuana is legal in some respect than there are states that are not.
True. There's going to be a lot of additional rules, regulations that are going to have to come onto this. The federal government's going to have to make their decision on what they're going to do. But clearly, when you have, if you look on a population of the states that have approved it now, especially with California coming online, there's going to have to be some things on. The thing I like about, and I'll tell you what I like about the fact that it's been approved and what I don't like. What I like about it is it's now, and I'm going back to small companies.
Right.
This has been a way for small companies to show that how much they can make and how much they could grow, because the big companies didn't want to be associated with marijuana. So now we've got a lot of these small bulletin board, even pink sheet listed companies that have gone up a staggering amount recently because
Right.
of this legislation. So it's got people back looking again at the low priced and companies and the low priced stocks out there because they can return. The thing I don't like about it is, and I've got kids.
Right,
Do I
right.
want that in the air all the time?
No.
Is it another thing you got to fight until they're 21, until they legally can do it? It's another thing that's going to be out there, and so I think we all, as parents, need to talk to our kids and educate them, and as we
Just
do
about
with
out of
topics.
time, and great insight on that, by the way, but just out of time, I know you've got an event in Nashville you want to talk about, so why don't you give that to us quickly?
Yeah, I mean, if you're within 100 miles of Nashville this coming Monday, November 14th, we're putting on an event at the Entrepreneur Center of Nashville. Now, it's limited, so I recommend if you are able to make it, we're going to have some tremendous presenters at this conference that are going to speak about green technologies, sustainable homes, and biotech. And there's a company, actually, a stock that I'm following that could return the most of any stock I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I've been in this business for 28 years.
And they can get information by going to Matt at greenchipir.com.
Yep, that's my email, matt@greenchipir.com.
Green Chip Investor Relations, Matt Chipman. Always a pleasure having you on the program, Matt.
Thanks for having me on again.